Okay, another day, another step for us. Opportunities Party is going to contest the Mount Albert by-election. The candidate will be Jeff Simmons, who's a long-term colleague of mine and responsible for quite a lot of the policy development work that we did when we were both working at Morgan Foundation. So he's extremely literate in all that material. More lately, he's had a bit of a profile on national radio running Jeffonomics on the Jesse Mulligan show in the afternoons on Wednesdays for quite a while. And that was all about explaining economics, politics and policy to a public audience. Now, while TOP is still embryonic, we only have 3 of our top 7 policy priorities announced so far. By the end of this by-election or by-election date, there'll be another 2 out, so that's 5 of the 7. I just think that given what's happened with the other parties, there's an opportunity here to do something for the people of Mount Albert. So that's what I really want to explain before I hand over to Jeff. Frankly, we were pretty surprised that National couldn't be bothered. You know, there are 10,000 people here that voted for a National MP in the last election, 14,000 people in Mount Albert who gave National their party vote. And yet the Nats are saying, nah, can't be fagged doing anything for the people of Mount Albert between now and the election day. So it looks like they just sort of don't care or whatever. Big round, you know, so long it's not important to them apparently. Which brings me then to Labour and the Greens and this pretty peculiar charade that they're going through, which is quite difficult to get your head around. Remember, they are supposed to be sisters in arms, but they're happy to construct some sort of pretense that they're competing to represent Mount Albert. It's pretty weird. I think it's just a profiling exercise for them. And a further irony with those two is that they're both already in Parliament. So if one of them wins, all it does is add another list MP to Parliament and for that party, and they sure as hell won't be representing Mount Albert. Thirdly, both the Greens and Labour go on and on, they bang on about this every day, that their mission is to change the government. Well, hang on a minute. This by-election is about representing the people of Mount Albert between now and whenever the election is. That's actually what the task is. So if Labour and the Greens aren't interested in anything but bagging the government, how on earth is either one of them going to be able to represent the people of Mount Albert's interests between now and the election? It just seems an oxymoron to me. So in short, the people of Mount Albert so far have got no representation being offered by National, Labour or the Greens. Well, doesn't that strike you as an opportunity? So that's why we've made the call to give the people of Mount Albert a decent choice. And in fact, we welcome the opportunity to do this, to work with you over the next 10 months or so, whatever it is, and to push your stuff, your interests down in Wellington. Now, Jeff grew up in Auckland and his family lives in this electorate. So he's pretty connected with local issues through that grapevine. In fact, I think every time he comes back here they bang on at him about what their particular priorities are, but he can talk a bit more about that. Now clearly this is a big challenge for us. What have we got, 3 weeks? And we're up against 2 quality candidates, totally, both Jacinda and Juliana quality candidates, with a very established party machinery behind them. So it's a bit of a David and Goliath, but that's okay. We think that representing the people of Mount Albert is that important. Our rationale, as you probably know, is that establishment party, in particular career politicians, do very little but occupy space in Wellington. Their vested interest is to retain the status quo, to make as little change as possible, because it might disturb their voters. That is why TOP has been conceived, is to change that paradigm totally. So over that period, over the last 40 years, we've seen the lot of a lot of New Zealanders deteriorate markedly. Inequality has risen hugely. The cost of property, affordability has plunged, chewing so much of people's income, particularly in an electorate like this, where, you know, I was driving past some houses yesterday that I would describe as modest, and asking the guy with me, you know, well, how much is that worth? And sort of just about blown out of my tree in terms of working out how much of, you know, people's income that is taking in this electorate. So this electorate is at the forefront of that inequality divide. So those are the sort of issues that TOP is very hot on, and establishment parties really don't want to do anything about. They haven't certainly done anything about it for the last 40 years. And unfortunately, under the Nats, it's got worse, a lot worse. So this mantra from Labour and the Greens of change the government sounds to me just like personal ambition rather than being interested in any policy. That's the difference between us, or Jeff and myself, and them. It's not about grabbing the reins of power, it's about getting the best policy to New Zealand people so that we can progress this society and this economy. So for the people of Mount Albert, I ask you that you give Jeff your support. He's a top bloke, or I should say he will prove to be a thorn between the 2 roses. And if it's policy you're interested in, or a voice for Mount Albert that's focused on Mount Albert, then he's your man, Jeff Simmons.
Kia ora koutou. Obviously, Labour and National think that this by-election is a foregone conclusion. But I think if we learnt anything from 2016, it's that, or even we learned it from the cricket at Eden Park the other night, there's no such thing as a foregone conclusion. Everything is up for grabs. There's no such thing as a safe seat anymore. And you might say that we're a little behind those international trends here in New Zealand, but I say that offers us a choice. Whether we go down the same path of partisan politics, alternative truths, and pandering to people's prejudices, or whether we strike a new path. And that's what the Opportunities Party is really offering here, a new path based on truth, transparency, and what works. What I'm interested in is an Auckland that is prosperous. And you know, it's our biggest city, it's arguably our only world-class city. But the question is, can we have a prosperous city that takes care of its people and the environment? Now, the old dialogue between left and right was that we can't have it all. You can only have businesses and jobs on one side, or look after people and the environment on the other. Well, TOP does not buy into that conversation at all. There are win-wins out there. We can have it all, but we've got to be prepared to challenge the status quo. at its core, really what TOP is about is business with heart. So like Gareth said, we've only released 3 policies so far, but I've been surprised about how much they're resonating with the issues facing Mount Albert at the moment. As Gareth mentioned, spiralling house prices and rents, which are locking young people out of the housing market, increasing that gap between rich and poor. We've got infrastructure creaking under the strain of rapid population growth, and we've got sewage in our swimming spots, raw sewage. I mean, firstly, but secondly, how are we supposed to lecture farmers that they should clean up their act if we can't do it in our largest city? So we think the people of Mount Albert are not getting a fair go. They're not getting a fair go in this by-election, and they're not getting a fair go in general. That is why TOP is putting forward a candidate. It's why I'm standing in this by-election, so that the people can be offered a real choice. There are big decisions looming in this electorate in coming years, and local people need to be involved in those decisions. They need representation at the table, regardless of who the government of the day is. So my invitation, my message to Labor and the Greens is, you've said you want to do this by-election differently. TOP's on board with this. It's a shame National doesn't want to come to the party, but this is an opportunity to start the election year showing some leadership, talking about issues that will really make a difference to people's lives and will ultimately allow us to talk directly to the people of New Zealand about the issues that matter to them, both here in this city and countrywide.
Don't you come from Wellington?
I'll answer questions in a moment, Audrey.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
My invite to the people of Mount Albert is to come along and meet Gareth and I. Here at the War Memorial Hall, we're going to have our launch event this Saturday, 4th of February, 1:30 p.m. Families are welcome. There's a great rocket park here. It's a chance to meet Gareth and I, have a cup of tea and a biscuit, and have a chat about the issues that matter to you, about how we can make this country and this city great.